Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Travel Coach Network podcast. It is I, Sahara Rose DeVore, the founder and CEO of the Travel Coach Network and the creator and instructor of the Travel Coach Certification Program. Today, I have a very exciting guest. I have Janice Waugh, the founder of Solo Traveler. So, driven by a passion for travel and a deep understanding of the needs of those who journey alone, Janice is the founder, publisher, and a key contributor to Solo Traveler, the leading resource for solo travelers worldwide. Inspired by her own experiences traveling solo, Janice created Solo Traveler to offer practical advice, inspiration, and community to those who set out on their own. Janice has built Solo Traveler into a trusted company, a community, and vibrant resource, helping hundreds of thousands of people embrace the freedom, growth, and joy that solo travel offers. Well, Janice, thank you so much for being a guest on the Travel Coach Network podcast today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it for
Yeah,
sure.
well, I'm excited to chat more about and hear everything about Solo Traveler and what you guys got going on. But first, can you tell us more about yourself and where your own passion for travel stemmed from?
Yeah, it stems from a very early age, actually. And at the age of 10, my family moved from Montreal to Ottawa. So I have this marker in my life. And so I know it was before I was 10 that my mother told me about cycling from hostel to hostel through the eastern townships of Quebec. And so this to me was just like, this was magical, right? And 5 years later, 15, 14, I saw a cycling tour of the UK that was being run by a teacher from one of the high schools. And yeah, so that was I guess, in September of my grade 9 year. That summer, I was on that trip. And we were cycling from hostel to hostel in Wales and Southern England. So I fulfilled it right then. And after that, I never traveled with my family again until my mother turned 80. And we had a family trip. So like that was just it. I was gone. I was done. I was traveling on my own, traveling with friends, traveling with family when I had family, that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, where did you end up going when your mother was 80?
Cuba.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we went to Cuba as a family. Yeah.
Wonderful. Would you say that there is a trip or an experience that you had throughout the years that really made a big impact on you in some way or quote unquote to transformed you in some way?
Well, certainly that first trip going to hostels, I discovered how much I love them. I still go to hostels. They're a wonderful social experience for a solo traveler, no matter what your age. And at this stage of my life, um, I'm a novelty at the hostel. It's not like I'd be the only one that would be solo and older, but I'm still a novelty. And I talk to young people like in their 20s or whatever, and they go, "You're not like my parents." Right? And I consider that a compliment. And so that was transformative. And when traveled with family, I took, the family to hostels, right? It's not the only way. We camped, all sorts of things, but they were introduced to hostels as well because they're such an incredible resource. Otherwise, like I became vegetarian after going to India. Like there have been many transformations that have happened, right, as a result of travel for sure. It's inevitable.
Yeah,
It's inevitable.
I absolutely, especially the more that you travel, there's more opportunities for even more growth and change. I love hostels. That's something that helped, one of the pieces that helped me be able to travel as much as I did on my own budget for as long as I did. And I know people still have the stigma of, hostels being, a bad experience, which yes, there are a fair share of not very great hostels, and I've stayed in several of them. But there are also incredible hostels, and not only just the hostels and like what they look like and their amenities, but like you were saying, the experiences, the people that you meet, everything. I think that everyone should stay in hostels at some point, even if it's just once. Um, I used to take my mom when she was traveling with me and her friends. They would stay in hostels with me. And I remember the very first time that I took my mom to a hostel. We were traveling, her and I were backpacking throughout Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and Hawaii. And we were in Sydney, Australia, and and my mom, she has expectations for things. And accommodations. And so her very first time, the lady takes us up to our room and opens the door and she goes, okay, this is where you ladies will be staying. And it was I think there was two, four, six, so three bunk beds or four bunk beds. And in Australia, many people end up pretty much living there because they realize that it's so
Yeah.
expensive to keep on traveling there. So they have to find a job. So a lot of these girls are kind of settled in as that's their home. So they have a lot of things around their bed. And my mom, the lady opens the door and my mom closes the door right away. She goes, oh no, that's someone's bedroom. That's not our room. Like, she goes, no, this is where you're staying. But that was a moment that my mom and I talk about forever because my mom had the most incredible time. The girls that were in that room, we're friends on Facebook with many of them to this day. I met up in other countries with them. Like, so that experience also changed my mom's perspective on how to travel, about people, just everything. It was from her first time staying in a hostel. And then she became the hostel mom where she did the cooking. And of course, everyone, all the boys wants, you know, all the food because it's free. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's just an incredible experience.
It's yeah,
Um,
we could have a whole session on hostels
I
and
know, right?
hostel
Maybe I
stories.
should have an episode about hostels. So you obviously fell in love with travel and realized the benefits of solo travel. What were some of the things that traveling solo was doing for you? Because obviously you've traveled with family, with I'm sure friends at some point, in groups
Yep.
maybe, but different kinds of travel. But why was it solo travel that really fed your soul, and what was it actually doing for you?
So I guess I mean I did a number of small trips in my teens and early 20s. And my first longer trip was actually my first time in Europe. And I did 2 weeks on my own. And that was again, it was, using hostels, connecting with people, and traveling around. And it just when you're making your own way, you're figuring it all out, the growth that happens, the opportunity to follow your own interests rather than those of other people that you're traveling with, to be able to pick up with someone and spend a day and then and then let them go, or pick up with someone and spend a week. Right. I went into this goes way back to 85. I went into Hungary before the wall fell with an Australian and an Israeli woman. Right. And that experience is burned in my head. Right. And so the thing about solo travel is that it's that piece of, they say you can do what you want when you want, which sounds rather trite, but it's very significant. It's very significant. And as you do that, you learn about your own wants. And sometimes those are hard to see in this world when other people have expectations of you. So you see your own wants, and as you're acting on those, you are discovering that you are capable of acting on those, and you're capable of so much more than you thought. So there's just multiple layers. It's a bit of an onion situation where solo travel feeds you in so many ways, and understanding yourself, that's a lifelong journey. So if you can take, moments, I mean, week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is, to spend with yourself and go through that discovery process, that's pretty valuable. That's pretty
Mhm.
valuable.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why, especially women, what we say, addicted to solo
Mhm.
travel. It's so appealing to us because every time we go on a trip, there's something else we learn about ourselves, and we get even more clear on things, what we want, what matters to us, what doesn't, what our values are. And as you were talking about being able to just do what you want when you want, which is one of my favorite things to do, it gives you a sense of freedom. You have choice. You
Yeah.
have, you know, this sense of freedom that we don't often get, especially as women in our daily lives when we have responsibilities, you know, being mom, being, you know, a spouse, whatever it might be. And so traveling solo, a lot of that is lifted, and we can just be and figure out what do we want to do when we can just be, and who are we, and what makes us happy, and everything. So that leads into, obviously you understood the the power that traveling solo has on women. What led you to create the platform that you have now with Solo Traveler? Because that's there's a lot of solo travelers out there, especially women, but what was it that inspired you to take action upon that and want to help and encourage and inspire others?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, traveled solo, 20s, family, traveled with family, and then my husband passed away in 2006. And we had actually, in 0102, we had traveled for 10 months as a family through Europe. We'd sold a business. So the entrepreneurial background is a piece of this, right? Sold a business, um, took a couple of years to get organized as to what we're doing here, and then traveled for 10 months and came back, and his illness became very evident and he passed. And, the grieving journey is not fun and it's not linear and it's not defined in terms of time. And so what happened is that, I was going up and down over the course of a couple of years, and it was just over 2 years after he passed that it was February. God, it was February. It was a week. It was a Saturday, and weekends are harder. Were harder for me, anyways. We busy during the week, that kind of thing, in the weekends. And so sitting on the couch, it's February, it's dark, it's gloomy, and I could feel myself kind of falling into the grief cycle again. And I just did not want to go there. And I don't know why. I said, I guess I'm traveling solo. Like, where did that come from? So at that point, I was a freelance writer. I was writing about small business, and I picked up my computer, which was always somewhat close at hand, and Googled it. And what came up, the first thing that came up, there were other people that were writing about this, but the first thing that came up was really hookup-y, and about singles trips and things like it. It had nothing to do with travels from my perspective. And I thought, I could give a different voice to this. And the project was a passion project at the beginning, and obviously it's evolved. Not that there's no passion left, there is, but but what it was an opportunity to, as a writer, to use my own voice, right? And use those years of experience as a traveler and as a solo traveler, and start writing about it in a voice that is pretty realistic, right? So my first trip was a trip that I'd always wanted to do with one of my sons, but at a certain point they don't want to travel with you. And so I took a train from Chicago to New Orleans down the Blues Highway and stopped in a few places, and that's where I was like, that's where I could be really reflective and start writing about the how-tos. And so a lot of our site is about how to travel solo, various aspects of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you are like one of the original bloggers on solo travel. Like it seems like, because that's what it sounds like you were doing at first. Like you're sharing your journey, your experiences, your perspective, the information that you collected, and the
Mm.
advice. What So there's one thing to start writing about your own experiences. And was it always called Solo Traveler when you first
Yeah.
titled it? Which is genius, because obviously the solo travel industry, which we'll get into, is massive. But what was that shift from when you were just like, okay, I'm just talking about my experiences and giving my own information, to realizing that it's more than what you maybe thought it was going to be at first?
Right. So there was two things happening. So I was a freelance writer. I kept my writing clients, right? And I was writing solo traveler. I was getting very tired of writing for clients, right? It was not inspiring. It was satisfying when they were happy. That was lovely, but it wasn't my thing. So I wanted to see what solo traveler could become. I sent out a survey, very early days, and learned about the single supplement. I had no idea there was such a thing because I had not taken tours since when I was 15, right? Um, and discovered that, companies were charging 100% more for someone to go solo rather than being with a couple. And this was 2009. 2008, there was the financial crash, right? 2009, the travel industry was hungry. And some companies started waiving the single supplement. So I put out a Google alert and I started publishing trips for solo travelers that that didn't have a supplement. And then we built that into a business model. So that was kind of the turning point. I did a survey, discovered something about my readers, and I'm talking like 10 readers a day. I'm not talking a very big number. But discovered something that could create a business model that could make the site grow and provide a different kind of richness, because there are the independent solo travelers, but there are also the solo travelers that go on guided tours or cruises or whatever on occasion or always. And so that kind of gave me pause. Is that traveling solo, right? And my conclusion it was, and currently and continues to be, that the thing about traveling solo is that you're leaving behind the people that are defining you. You're leaving behind the expectations and you're jumping into the unknown, right? Um, and you're discovering you have the opportunity to, like we talked about, kind of flow, use your own energy, flow with it the way you want to flow, things like that. Now, when you're on a tour, not all of that is under your control, but you're still leaving behind everyone that has expectations of you. You're still choosing tours that are your choice, not someone else's. You know, and you're jumping into a group of people, and you can be whoever you want to be, right? So I think that it's an interesting side of solo travel. And when I did my first or second tour, it was like, wow, this is really interesting, because as you're traveling, like when I traveled independently, I would pick up with people and that type of thing. But on this tour, we were in China, and the one that when it really made sense to me is that there was this very quiet guy on the tour and wasn't saying much. But at one point we were out in the countryside of China, and like where there were farm fields and things like this. And that's when we discovered he was a farmer and he could explain to us what we were seeing. So that was really an interesting revelation about the value of solo travel on a tour versus solo travel independently. So yeah, it's quite interesting how, and now I've lost the question that you asked me in the
Oh,
first place. My
yeah,
goodness, I'm sorry.
no, I really like how you define that and never actually thought about it that way, because I know as a solo traveler myself, there are many times that I joined tours, I joined groups, or of course I met up with people or met groups of people and we traveled around a couple countries for several weeks together or whatever it might be. Or times I traveled with my mom and a group of her friends and then I went back this way and they went back home. But I still always considered myself a solo traveler. And I took a cruise, a solo cruise once, or cruise solo once, and in Scandinavian region, because for me it's more expensive and it's like hard. You need more flights to get around up there. It's very vast. So that made sense for me, and I absolutely loved it. But when you're talking about the single supplement, I actually didn't know that was what it was called. I had to actually Google it recently. I but I remember doing research and being like, why is it so expensive
Yeah.
for when it's like it should be cheaper? There's less that I'm consuming and doing. So, can you explain to our listeners of what is a single supplement and what does that have to do with the solo travel world and solo traveler? Like, how are you guys helping people when it comes to this?
Yeah. So the single supplement is a surcharge. If you book, say you book a couple books a tour, and they're paying $2,000 each, so it's $4,000. And then a single goes to book that tour and they're paying 2,000 plus 50%. So they're paying $3,000 for that same tour. And you say, why, why could that be? And as I say, when in 2009, it was like 100%. That was common. So 50% is now pretty common. Um, why is that? Well, the tour company, there's a couple of things. There's the cost of accommodation. That's the primary additional cost because you're getting a single room. And they're not putting two people in that room. That's the primary cost. The other side is business model. And that's where they'd rather sell to two people and make one sale to two people rather than having to sell one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. So that's what the single supplement is. As I say, the 2008 crash sent companies looking for new travelers that they hadn't been serving. And some continued, so they identified the solo travelers, and some continued to serve solo travelers, but many just went back to their old ways. But over the years, and I'm telling you, like 10 years, more, maybe 13, solo travel has been one of the top trends every single year since then, right? And so the industry has responded. They've taken note. Some haven't, but many have. And so we have, to our knowledge, the only list of tours and cruises for solo travelers on our website that have no supplement, many have no supplement, or a maximum of 20%. So a company cannot promote a trip that has more than a 20% supplement. And they know the rules and they're kicked off if they, or at least that trip is kicked off if they break the rules. So it's an incredible resource for solo travelers. And there's usually over 100 trips. There's usually 25 to 30 companies advertising at any given time, and each are promoting between, 3 to 6 trips, right? So there's a good volume there. So one of the things that we did last November is we launched another service for solo travelers who like tours called Tracy's List. So Tracy's List is a little bit different. No company can buy their way onto Tracy's List. And Tracy looks at, yes, our advertisers, but she goes farther afield. I should introduce Tracy as our editor. And Tracy is detailed oriented. Very, like, that's what an editor is, right? But very detail oriented. She loves finding really good value for things. She's a good traveler by herself. She's been editing Solo Traveler and moderating the Solo Travel Society on Facebook since 2010 or something like this. So like she's well entrenched. She knows what solo travelers want. And so what she does every month is she researches and finds what she thinks are the best opportunities. So rather than for solo travelers, so rather than having the list of advertisers, which is a great resource of over 100 trips, she'll send an email once a month to the subscribers, and there will be like 7 trips on there, maybe 8 trips. It depends upon the month, right? But these are very wide ranging, different countries, different destinations, but they're trips that she has vetted, read the fine print, and said, this is a great opportunity for solo travelers. And so we send that out. So it is supported by the subscribers to the tune of $3 a month or $30 a year. So it's not inexpensive. It could save someone a bundle, right?
Yeah,
But it's, yes,
especially
so
solo
those are the things that
travelers.
we do.
Yeah, so that's called Tracy's List. So I know it's on your website. We'll drop the link to that in the show notes for everyone to check that out. It sounds like a no-brainer for solo travelers because you're going to be saving so much more money in the long run if you are looking for these type of experiences or incorporating them from time to time into your own journeys as a solo traveler. And is it specifically tours and cruises?
It's tours and cruises. Typically it's not ocean cruises. The ocean cruise industry is not particularly solo friendly, even when they say that they've got these solo cabins. Very often you can look, the solo cabins are closets, and you can look at what their general offering is, and you could get pretty close to it financially and a much better situation. So the cruising industry is a tricky one. Got to be careful with them. The river cruising industry is much more compatible. So normally it would be she finds river cruises that are really great or tours. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and the river cruise industry is booming. Like so many people are interested in river cruises. Every event I go to, every conference, everything, it's everyone talks about river cruises. Um, but so what, tell us as we come towards the end of our chat today, um, what's in store for Solo Traveler? I know that you guys have a lot of exciting things still in the works, but what are some things that you're looking forward towards or working on with Solo Traveler?
Well, as I said, we just launched Tracy's List. So that is our priority at the moment in terms of, outreach, letting people know about that project. One of the ones that we are considering and mulling and trying to figure out is how to support people. This is typically for women over 50 or so that are starting to question their physical ability to do some of the trips that they really want to do, whether that's, high adventure trips or whether it's walking cobblestones, right? Everyone's got their own thing. So that's one of the things that we're really thinking about as to how we can support our readers, because we do get, emails about mobility issues on occasion. And then there's, of course, those that are more like climbing and things of this nature that maybe they hit a point and go, well, I haven't done it for a number of years. I don't know whether I can do it. So that side of travel support is one of the ones that we're looking at, but that's in the offing.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you bring that topic up because that's something that I've been hearing so much about. We have several of our travel coaches that one I've certified, two that have just joined, that I've heard that's what they focus in or that's what they're building is because they want to help empower people or help them realize that you can travel still at any age and that how can you prepare mentally, physically, for your trip. Some focus in certain types of adventure trips, like hiking or whatnot. So that industry is that aging, the physical ability, um, is I think another sector of the industry that's going to grow
Yeah.
tremendously. So it's so interesting. I say all the time, we learn from through our travel coaches of what it is that is important in this industry because it's important to them or
Yeah.
they've realized it or learned from other people or saw it elsewhere. So um, yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to share about Solo Traveler Tracy's List that we haven't talked about yet today?
No, except that, with the exception of Tracy's List and its small fee, everything is free. Please come read, learn, get empowered. We do have a newsletter that's free as well. And what we do with that newsletter is, we send out information that we think is going to be valuable for solo travelers, but also twice a month we send out that long list of trips so that people get it in their inbox and can see what they are. And that's a real the feedback that we get is that people really want that information because it's really hard to find, right? So
Yeah,
yes, come read,
you've done the
enjoy.
hard work for them.
Yeah, yeah. And connect. And of course, there's a Solo Travel Society on Facebook, and that's where, there's 270 some odd thousand people there. And so it's quite a community. You can ask questions, and people jump in. I remember one time there was one of our readers in London, and it was her first trip, and she was kind of going through that moment of what am I doing here, right? And so she reached out to the Solo Travel Society, and the support was unbelievable, right?
Mhm.
So that's a lovely aspect of the community.
Yeah, both of us have communities in obviously the travel space, and to see the support always lights up our own souls and hearts because that's why both of us do what we do, to see other people connect, our members, our audiences connect and support each other or travel together and help each other and whatever. Travel is so meaningful, whether we're doing it or we're helping other people do it.
Yeah,
It's a very incredible industry.
yeah.
So where can everyone find, follow, and learn more about Solo Traveler and Tracy's List?
So solotravelerworld.com, simple as that, is our site. And there's a navigation thing at the top, and Tracy's list is right there. So you can click on that to see Tracy's list. And our primary situation, our primary reach to readers is through Facebook. So that's the Solo Travel Society on Facebook. And then, of course, our free newsletter. So sign up for that. And also on the free newsletter, those people that sign up for that, you can try Tracy's list out for $1 and see if you like it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be sure to drop all those links in the show notes. And my favorite question that I always ask is there a fun fact about yourself that you can share with our listeners? It doesn't have to be business or travel related.
Okay. The fun fact is that I am very passionate about volunteering. And when I was grounded in 2020, as everyone was, I was in Morocco when COVID was declared a pandemic. Came back and started volunteering. I volunteered at a food bank. I met many people, really interesting people. And as a result, I co-founded a charity called North Star Startups. And what we do is we help people who are on social assistance financially in difficult situation start small service-based businesses like gardening or cleaning or dog walking, things of that really low startup cost, and help them find greater financial security through self-employment. And we say self-employed is self-empowered. So.
I love that. I knew we had more in common than originally. I always, volunteering has always been something that I have always done. I think it's always been something that just made me, I don't know, it fed my soul too. In high school, I got the only recipient of our Key Club award for volunteering. But I, whether it was traveling and spend some time just helping whenever I could, but a lot of organizations here, especially for me, my favorites are always the animal shelters. That
Mhm.
is going to be a big part of my future journey when I'm able to remove myself a bit more from the TCN is to find a way to help or fund or something more of the help more of the animals out there. That's something I'm so passionate about, and I know it's part of my calling. Well, thank you for sharing that. How can people learn about your charity as well? Where can they find more information about that? Maybe they know
It's
someone who they can recommend to it.
sure, it's northstarstartups.com. Simple as
Perfect.
that. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Janice, thank you so much for being a guest on the TCN podcast today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was a fun chat.
Oh, good, good. Well, everyone, be sure to follow us on Instagram at the Travel Coach Network. Learn more at thetravelcoachnetwork.com. Come give us a hello in our TCN Global Community on Facebook. You'll find the link for that and your free beginner's guide to travel coaching, along with all of Janice's links also in the show notes. And if you know anyone who may be interested in travel coaching, please be sure to send them our way to our podcast. We would truly appreciate that. And until next time, my fellow wanderers, bye for now.